Welcome to Vida Tennis, the podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Craig Thompson, who has an incredible career at the forefront of the sports industry. Craig was a co founder of the UEFA Champions League, creator of the Champions Hockey League, and former CEO of the 34th America's Cup. He has worked in other sports such as volleyball and equestrian, but today he is here to tell us about his passion for paddle and his most current venture in the sports world as CEO of MindSpring. Welcome, Craig. How are you doing today?
Well, as you can see, I'm sitting in a beautiful sunny day.
Beautiful California, sunny day over there. That's awesome. So I'm just curious to start with. You've been involved in all these different sports. What's your favorite sport today to watch, and which one's your favorite sport to play if you play any sports?
Well, I'm a beach volleyball player. I've been playing all my life. I played on the pro tour here, up and down the California coast in the 70s and 80s, so a long time ago, but still get to play twice a week with a group of former collegiate and beach players. So I love playing beach volleyball. It's amazing in here, especially here in Southern California. To watch, boy, that's a tough one because I love sports. I mean, paddle is a great sport to watch, but probably my favorites are Grand Slam tennis and NBA basketball.
Nice. And did you ever play tennis?
I did play tennis all my life. In addition, but my main sport is beach volleyball.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
I I don't play beach volleyball much, but I used to play volleyball a lot for fun, and I do think that the sports translate. A lot of my skills from tennis would translate to volleyball, and I really enjoy it. I don't have you played beach tennis? I think you would like that.
Well, I probably would, but don't have enough time for everything. So I'm going to stay with my beach volleyball.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the qualities that make a sport fast growing? We talk about paddle all the time being one of the fastest growing sports in the world.
Yeah. In my view, there is a sort of changing paradigm of global sports participation right now. A lot of people are kind of badgered their entire lives. You're not getting any exercise. You need to work out. You need to go to the gym. You need to start running. You need to start swimming. And a lot of people, they wouldn't mind getting some exercise, but they don't want to join a club, a gym, an expensive membership, the discipline of lessons and all that. It's just not for them, right? It's too serious. They'd rather do something that's fun, easy. So along comes these two sports in the world, pickleball and paddle. And they just happen to deliver the essence of simplicity, of fun, social. You can play whenever you want. You don't need expensive memberships, expensive equipment. You pay by the hour when you play. And we can see what's happened now. Look at pickleball in America, and it's entirely throughout the entire country. Paddle is now in 130 countries, probably more than that. Probably the fastest growing sport in the world, and it's because it's just the first time you go on the court, you can play. Tennis, you can't play for 6 months. If that's if you have a good coach, unless you're just a super athlete. So anybody can go out on the paddle court or the pickle court and play and have fun. And yet, if you want to get good, if you want to take the sport seriously, you can play 4 or 5 times a week and get good. You could become a professional in both sports. So it's just that. It's just made it easy for people to get out there and have fun, be with their friends, and not have to worry about all the other stuff that goes with a lot of other sports.
Yeah. I agree with that to a certain point because, that's our job as coaches is to make it, attainable and somewhat easy to learn, right? But yeah, tennis is complicated, but I've tried padel or paddle and it's not easy. Like you have to learn how to read the walls. Like there's a lot that goes into it and even coming from tennis, like I go play pickleball and it seems super easy, but when I go play paddle, I'm pretty challenged like cuz
Well,
everything's different.
look, you're a high level tennis player. You're used to competitive sports. You look at paddle the same way. And, if you want to play competitive paddle, yeah, you're going to have to get good on the walls. You're going to have to practice and play. But the thing about paddle is, and I've had this experience 100 times in my life. The first time I take someone on the court, and the first time they're ever on the court, We played 3 sets and they walk off and go, "My god, that was fantastic." They didn't play well off the walls, they missed volleys, they missed overheads, but the ball, it's a very forgiving sport. You just get it back across the net and the rally keeps going, and that's one of the wonderful things about paddle. The rallies are really long, and
Yeah.
the ball never leaves the court, it's always inside the walls, like tennis, you're always chasing the ball. Pickleball, you're always chasing the ball. Paddle is right there. So, look, I hear you. If you wanna get good at any sport, you gotta discipline yourself, get lessons, you know, put the time in. But these sports, pickle and paddle, you can play once a month, you can play once a year and have fun.
Absolutely. And what do you think is the relationship between participation in sports and viewership? Because they both feed off each other, right? But we don't really get to see padel or pickleball on TV that much. At least I don't. But, there's still a lot of people playing it. So it's kind of those weird scenarios where there's more participation than people actually watching professional tournaments. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
I'm in a whole bunch of countries every year, Europe and America, all over the world. I travel for the business of sport. So, in Europe, there's an event, a competition called Premier Padel, which is the top pro tour for paddle these days, okay? They have tournaments every 2 weeks. No one in America, we don't know this. In Premier Paddle, tournaments every 2 weeks in Europe, mostly in European cities, but they're in Miami. I think they just had an event in New York. They are in basketball, hockey arenas in Europe. They close down like half of the arena because it's a small court, but that half of the arena still has 10,000 seats. These arenas are sold out. Every weekend, they're sold out.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't believe it. And maybe one of the best examples of what you're talking about is, there's a lot of participants, but do they watch the sport? In Sweden, for example, where the sport is now it's probably the number 2 per capita number of paddle courts in the world, Spain and then Sweden on a per capita basis. But they have an event in Malmo, Sweden, and I've been to it. And on a Saturday and Sunday, you walk into this arena, hockey arena, very, very nice professional arena, 10,000 seats, completely sold out. Not one Swedish player is playing in that event on the Saturday and Sunday. They had some qualifiers, they were all eliminated on the Thursday and Friday. The only players you have on Saturday and Sunday are Argentinians and Spanish because they are by far the best in the world because they've been playing it the longest.
Yeah.
And this arena is full of Swedish people. There's no Spanish people there. There's no Argentinians in Sweden to speak of. It's Swedish people that are coming and paying a lot of money to watch this Premier Paddle, and they're on their feet. They're going nuts. They know the players. I've never seen this phenomenon before, where you take a sport with 2 countries playing it that aren't in that country, and the arena is full to watch it. It's because it's so popular to play, and those people love watching the best players. So this is what's going on in paddle. It's a big secret from Americans, but this is what's going on, and the same thing's gonna be happening in America over the next 5, 10 years. Arenas in America, basketball arenas will be full of people watching paddle tournaments. I guarantee you.
Okay. I like the enthusiasm. I'm a fan. I do enjoy playing it whenever I get the chance to. And what about sports betting? Does that play a huge role in growing the sport? What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, betting is in every sport now all over the world. It's growing in America by the day. And, it attracts a certain portion of sports fans and people that are not sports fans that like to bet. And now, of course, when you're betting, you're watching the video of the match while you're betting. In tennis, you can bet, the next 3 strokes are going to be forehand, forehand, backhand. You know, it's unbelievable the sophistication of the betting now. Betting has not really entered the paddle arena yet because there haven't been enough events, even though this pro tour, the Premier Paddle, has events every 2 weeks. You know, most bettors like the number 2 betting sports in the world are football, of course, soccer, football, and number 2 is tennis, believe it or not. And
Oh
the
wow.
number and the reason tennis is number 2 is because there are tennis tournaments, multiple tennis tournaments every week of the year, every year. There is an enormous amount of inventory, and bettors that like to bet on a sport, they wanna have access to it whenever they wanna bet. So that's why, soccer, football, there's matches all over the world. There's always something going on. Same in tennis. And so these other sports, they have to grow a bit before they can really achieve a healthy betting audience. But it's coming. It'll be a big part of paddle like it is of everything else. So, yeah, I'm not going to be surprised about that.
It's interesting to see what translates, from Europe to the US and what doesn't. We've been trying to get soccer going here in the US for a long time. It is there's more interest now, but the Americans are used to watching football, basketball, baseball are like the main events. But now you even see like American football going overseas, and I do think like the whole sports arena is becoming more international, maybe
It
because
is.
everyone
It
has
is.
access to a phone right now, so they can watch everything.
Look, I've been in the sports industry for 40 years now and worked in 65 countries all over the world. What's happened with social media, with streaming, how many Americans live in Europe that want to watch American football? How many Europeans live in America that want to watch soccer? How many Indians live in America that want to watch cricket? You know?
Yeah.
So all these sports, because of streaming, have started to penetrate all over the world. There's an audience there, and now people can capitalize on that. They can monetize it. So, look, soccer in America is growing like crazy. The World Cup is coming here in 2026. I believe it's going to knock it out of the park. It's already very big here, but the World Cup, I think, is just going to be the icing on the cake. I think soccer within the next 5 to 10 years maximum, it'll be in the top four. Be more popular than hockey.
I love watching soccer. So I grew up watching World Cup, and I can't wait to have it here in the US. I'm gonna do my best to get some tickets, but it's gonna be incredibly difficult to get that. And okay, so what about paddle then makes it so exciting and such a good investment opportunity? Because obviously we're seeing a lot of people in the tennis world and in the rackets world investing in paddle. Why is that?
Um, because the sport, like pickleball, and paddle even more, it has a rather addictive aspect to it. People just love it. It's just so much fun. It's so easy. It's so inexpensive. All these things we were talking about. When courts are built, they're full. Okay, this really started in Spain, where I started playing 20 years ago in Barcelona. Tennis clubs have been losing membership. A lot of young people are not joining tennis clubs like they used to. And some tennis clubs have courts which are not used very much. In Spain, they started putting paddle courts on these tennis courts. And you could put 3 paddle courts on a tennis court. And the tennis clubs were losing revenue. They were not doing well. When they started bringing the paddle in, they got new members to the club. They got new people, and a lot of tennis players love playing paddle. And by the way, paddle players also gravitate towards tennis. They're all racket sports, right? People like to play when you have that kind of skill set, you can play all sports. So over 20 years, over 25 years, guess what happened? Tennis in Spain started getting stronger financially again. So
Yeah.
these sports, they help each other. Okay, and the same thing's happening in America with pickleball. You see pickleball courts at tennis clubs. My tennis club here in Newport Beach has 44 pickleball courts. Okay,
Yeah.
so investors are always looking for new areas to invest in all across all industries. In sport, we have this phenomenon now where pickle courts and paddle courts are going in everywhere. Pickle courts not so much around the rest of the world, but in America. And so the court builders, these courts in paddle cost 50, $60,000 each when you talk about the groundwork that has to be done. And so there's a lot of money in paddle courts. And investors have come in to paddle court builders, they've come into paddle clubs, and they've come into tennis clubs where paddle is coming in. And they're also investing in Premier Paddle, the professional tour. So, there are so many investors right now sort of looking for good investments in paddle that it's amazing. It really is amazing.
I was actually in Spain back in 2012, I think. And I saw the courts and I was like, "What the heck is that?" And it was kind of like pickleball is here now, like people were annoyed that he was kind of taking over the courts and stuff. And now, obviously he has grown a lot. So, and people seem to really like it. So that's great, especially if it's helping tennis or tennis facilities financially.
You know,
That's obviously a good thing as well.
tennis is definitely the more important sport of all the racket sports, and it's going to stay like that. The thing is that we always say paddle and tennis are friends. We work together. People
Mm,
like to play both sports.
yeah.
And 1 and 1 is 3, okay? Because paddle courts at a tennis club means a tennis club is stronger than ever. They can do more junior programs, more training, more events because they have the revenue from paddle now as well. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. And what do you think are the main hurdles to getting paddle to grow here in the States? Is it just building courts? Is that the main issue right now?
Look, first of all, it's awareness of the sport, right? The vast majority of Americans have never heard of paddle,
Yeah.
and that's going to take time. But this time horizon happens very quickly. Like I said, it's in 130 countries, so we know how fast it's developed in France, in Italy, in Belgium, Holland, in South Africa, in the Middle East, in Japan. We know how fast. And what happens is that once some courts start getting built and people start playing, then they start playing a lot, and then the courts are full. You can't get a court. In London today, you go to try to book a paddle court in London, you're going to wait 2 weeks to get a 1 hour slot. 2 weeks
Wow.
across the entire city. There's hundreds of paddle courts in London, okay? But they're all full. It's like supply and demand. When people want to do something, they can't do it. It creates an anxiety. And there's pressure to build more courts. So
Yeah.
people are making money on building courts, and it's just a virtuous cycle. The more people play, the more people talk about it, the more people go to clubs, more and more people start doing it. The same thing is starting to happen in America right now. In America, there's probably 300 or 400 paddle courts. They're you don't see them, in
Yeah.
Los Angeles here. Several of the wealthy people have built courts at their house in downtown LA. And believe it or not, there's a circuit
Wow.
of players that are actually very good former professional tennis players, really good athletes. They have like their own little closed league, and they go from rich person's house to rich person's house, and they have tournaments and they play on the weekends. And
Yeah.
this, I've been there, I've seen it. It's amazing. They're having a great time. And now, because of that, there's a shopping center in Century City here that just put in, I don't know, 4 or 5 paddle courts. It's a Westfield shopping center in Century City. They now have paddle courts. One of the really high end shopping malls in LA. And they've got paddle courts at the shopping center now. So the parking's there, you play
Wow.
paddle, you go for a restaurant afterwards, you do some shopping, go to the cinema. This is what's happening.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And we did have Ryan Redondo on the podcast too. And he was telling us about all the course that he's helping build with Tactica Paddle out on the West Coast. So that's great to see that it's taking over. Now, what about MindSpring Paddle? What's the main goal? Do you guys have any projects happening in the US? Because on the website it looked like it was mostly overseas.
I thought you'd never ask that question. Um, yeah. Um, our business is based in Belgium because the heart of paddle today is in Europe. Okay.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's in 130 countries. So I was telling about how the game progressed in Spain, where courts were losing, not all the tennis courts were used. Well, that's a global phenomenon. Okay, it's not so much in the USA. The USA, the tennis courts are still pretty much used in the US. I don't know why that is, but globally speaking, so, but because in many parts of the world, because the tennis business is down, the guys that run the tennis clubs don't have the money to put the paddle courts in because I said 50, $60,000 for a paddle court. So we come along and we say, listen, you have a club or you want to start a paddle club. You don't have all the money you need for courts. We'll pay for your courts. And because it's a pay for play sport by the hour and a half, we'll take a percentage, like 50% or 40% of your revenue from your courts and pay back over 3, 4 years, pay back the courts. So you have no out of pocket. So imagine that you're running a tennis club, you've got some tennis courts which are not fully utilized. We come along and put in 6 paddle courts for you. The next day, tennis players are starting to play some paddle. They keep playing tennis, of course. They're playing some paddle, but new people are joining the club or coming to the club to play paddle. And
Yeah.
this is all new revenue for that club. Those people go to the bars and restaurants, they go to the pro shop, they take lessons, they play in events. All of that revenue goes to the club. We only take a percentage of the court booking fee. Okay. So that's how our business started. We're in 15 countries now, building paddle courts, hundreds of paddle courts, and this is going to be thousands of paddle courts over the next few years.
Do you take a percentage? Is that until you are paid back or for perpetuity, or how does that work?
Yeah, we work out a contract with the tennis club until we're paid back, yes. And we also help them with technology. We have camera systems we can put on the court, so, you can get a video of your game, you could get your statistics, forehand success, backhand, overhead. We have vending machines that have paddles and balls and all that we can put at the club. We have ball machines that you can like a smart AI ball machine that actually knows how it can tell how good you are as a player. So all these kind of technology solutions we also bring to the clubs. We really help them to run their business.
What about the US? Are any plans to doing that here?
We are doing it now. We haven't actually financed any courts yet in the US, but it's new. This is one of the countries where it's just getting started. And so we're talking to a lot of clubs right now, and paddle clubs and tennis clubs, about doing this with them. And we will have plenty of paddle courts that we're financing here over the next few years.
That's awesome. Yeah, we definitely need some. I was just telling you before we started recording that my closest court is an hour away. So, you know, I might just go play tennis or, sometimes I go play pickleball too. But yeah, paddle is just not very accessible yet. Hopefully that will change.
In California now, we have courts in San Francisco, right across from the Embarcadero. We have courts in Sacramento. We have courts at the airport in San Francisco. We have courts in Torrance at the Galaxy MLS Galaxy teams training area. We've got courts in San Diego at the Barnes Center where with your friend Ryan Redondo. We've got courts in Oceanside. So, it's amazing. This has all happened in the last 2 years. All of this. There was no courts 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you involved currently in other sports, or is paddle your one and only sport right now?
Well, I've worked in about 20 sports in about 65 countries of the world. And I have got quite a little network around that. And I get sport projects all the time, mostly because of my work in the Champions League. That's one of the biggest professional leagues in Europe. It's $5 billion in revenue now. So a lot of people come asking for help on starting a new league, starting a new event. So yeah, I'm working in all kinds of sports, helping people get started, raise money. There's so much money flowing into sports right now globally. I mean, Americans are buying soccer clubs in Europe. There's about 100 European professional teams that are owned by Americans now. We don't know
Well,
anything about European soccer, but now the investors in this country now own 100 teams. But the same thing's been happening all over the world. And cricket is coming to America. Cricket. We don't know anything about cricket,
yeah,
but there's plenty of Indian people here that is their number one sport. Rugby has already started. Major League Rugby has already started. The world of sport is globalizing, and it's happening very fast. And on top of all that, we've got this rise in women's sports, which is long overdue.
I was just
But
about to ask you.
now, women's sports they have got a boost like a shot in the arm of adrenaline. It happened very quickly, but like our US women's soccer team, they've been filling stadiums for years. They're winning the Olympic Games, they're winning the World Cup.
Yeah,
We're world class in women's soccer. And the same thing in women's volleyball. Not so many people follow that sport. Women's volleyball. We've got gold in Tokyo in the indoor. We got silver in Paris. Men got bronze. Our women and women all over the world are really good in sports, and they're growing like crazy. The women's NBA, now with Caitlin Clark is a whole new thing. And this is all like new inventory for sports. There was always women's sports, but they didn't have audiences in television like they do today. And so
yeah,
this is like adding on to an existing men's world of sport, which is also growing. So sports is on fire. People love it. It's their passion.
yeah. That's so good to hear, because I love sports and I love watching sports. Not all of them. I can't. I'm not. I'm American now, but I wasn't born and raised here, so I can't get into American football. And my
Yeah.
husband, that's like all he watches is American football, and I'm just like boring. I don't know. I can't watch it.
People love different sports, that's part of
Yeah.
it.
That's the beauty of it, right? You can pick and choose what you wanna watch, so
Yeah.
that's fantastic, and I love to see also that you're really involved with tech. you're involved in empowering technology ventures in the sports industry. That's what was MindSpring Capital. I was reading on the website. Can you share any up and coming technologies in the sports world that you're really excited about that will just kind of like surprise us in the next few years?
I got into sport tech. I was running the America's Cup up in San Francisco, and it's right there by Silicon Valley. And there's a lot of sport tech startups in the valley. Some of them were approaching us to use their technology in the America's Cup. And so I met some of them, started talking to them about their tech products, how they're marketing them, at where they're being used. And they were almost all focused on the US, on US sports, hockey, basketball, baseball, football.
Yeah.
And I said, but technology is global. I mean, you can use it anywhere. And
Right.
so I started helping some of those companies get clients in Europe, in Asia, South America to broaden their business. And during that time I was doing that, I also fell in love with all these young people that are coming up with these unbelievable ideas, how to have sport make more money, engage with fans better, better video production, smart stadiums, AR, VR, and performance, computer vision, and tracking and analyzing player performance, preventing injuries. All these things are part of sport technology. The whole field is growing so fast. I decided to start a venture capital company and start investing in this and participating in this growth. And we did that in 2019 with Management Capital. And then today we have our third venture fund is called Match Ventures. We launched it in May. We've already made 6 investments. We're very global. We look at a new tech company every single day. That's how many there are now. It's incredible. And some of these companies, I mean, Delta Tray, one of the big names in the industry, just sold for $1 billion. They just,
Wow.
one tech company. It was owned by Bruin Capital. Now, there's not a lot of examples like that, but that's a good example. Sport Radar, Genius Sports, IMG, all these tech groups. We have a couple of companies. We have a company out of Tel Aviv called Minute.ly. Strange name, but a lot of strange names in the tech industry. Uh, they produce video teasers for sports rights holders. So the NFL, for example, is one of their biggest clients, and they take the videos that the NFL produces and they do like a little 5 or 10 second teaser of the highlights of that video. And if people like that, they click through to the full video, which may be a minute or two, and they put it all on the mobile phone. So it's all vertical, easy to see. And they're doing all the videos now for mobile phone for NFL. And, it's hundreds and thousands of videos every week for the NFL, but they have Major League Baseball. They've got Formula One, which is now growing in America, just had a race in Las Vegas. They have ATP Tour. They've got Wimbledon. They've got the Australian Open. It's a amazing business that is now, what happens, a lot of these technologies, they start in sport, but now, believe it or not, hospitals are calling this company and they're saying, can you do highlight videos of surgeries, not for the public,
Oh
for other
wow.
for doctors that want to, doctors learn by watching surgeries. So they
Mhm.
want this company to start producing videos of surgeries that can be watched by doctors, nurses, medical personnel, technicians, and so on, to learn more about their profession. And they, in education, they're getting approached by colleges, universities all over the world. Could you do this with educational content? So these companies that start in sports, lots of times they have actually bigger markets than just in sports, and then they become much, much bigger.
That's so interesting, and that's definitely more my pace. I love watching a highlight reel. More so, I mean, in
Well,
tennis, I like to watch a full match if it's like an important match, but other than that, I'm good with the highlights.
Major League Baseball, the second biggest sport in America, the average age of the viewer is 55 years old. The average is 55. So that means a lot of people are 80, okay? And sports they cannot survive with that old of an audience. You've got to bring in the young people. So they do it through highlights, and that's young people love highlights, and they get notifications on their phone. Hey, there's a highlights from this baseball game, and this company, Minutely, is now lowering the average age of fans of Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball couldn't be happier. This is
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful for them to get a younger audience following baseball. So the impact of technology in sports is truly unbelievable, and it's getting more every day.
It's interesting too how much things have changed and just how we get to watch sports, because it used to be like if you had ESPN, you could watch most things. Now it's like you need to have all these different apps. Like, all the sports are going into all these different, like you have to have Apple or Peacock or whatever. It's like you have to have everything today to find the match you want to watch. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, can be.
You've had an incredible career in the sports industry, working in multiple sports, and I just find it so fascinating. But I would love to know what has been the grand slam and the double bagel moment of your career so far.
The highlight has been the Champions League because we started that together with UEFA in 1992 out of an existing competition for the best clubs in the European leagues. They would come together and play. This started in 1955. We got it going and we revamped it in 1992. And like I said today, it's a $4.5 to $5 billion property in terms of revenue. But just to give you an example, one of the fun times was in Barcelona in 1999, so a long time ago. We had the final of the Champions League at the FC Barcelona Stadium, 95,000 spectators, incredible stadium. The only game in town in Barcelona is football, and the stadium was sold. It could have sold it out 10 times. The game was between Bayern Munich and Manchester United. So an English team and a German team playing in Barcelona for the European Club Championship. This is the biggest match of the year in football, soccer in Europe by far. It's on every television in the world. And I was organizing that match, and so Barcelona, there's a I don't know how your musical knowledge is, but there's a song about Barcelona. It's called Barcelona, and it's a cool song. It's an orchestral song sung with an opera singer and Freddie Mercury from Queen. So they got together on the stage with a big orchestra and they performed this song, which is the theme song of Barcelona. So I said, "Hey guys, we got to use this song as our at the opening ceremony to open the match." And so who's singing that song? A woman named Montserrat Caballé, a Barcelona native, and Freddie Mercury. Well, by 1999, Freddie Mercury had died. He had passed away.
Yeah.
So she was there. We went to her and said, "Hey, we want to perform the song. We want you to do it live. We want you to come in the stadium." She said, "No, no, no. I swore I would never perform this song again now that Freddie has died. He was a close, close friend, and it's too emotional for me." So, shit. So we went to a guy named Jose Carrera, who's a very famous global opera singer, and he was a friend of hers. We said, "Hey, would you talk to Montserrat about doing this song because it is so important for the city of Barcelona. This match is seen all over the world. We need to have this song to bring the city to life, and it's going to be so good for Barcelona." So
Yeah.
anyway, he went and talked to her. He's a big football fan. He went and talked to her and convinced her to do it. So she said, "All right, I'll do it." So we found a video of Freddie Mercury, close up of his face singing the song. We put it before the match. We put it up on the giant screens in the stadium of him, and she was on a golf cart, a very nicely decorated golf cart with a big gown, and she came out of the tunnel with a microphone, and we start the music. And normally in football in Europe, when you have a final like this, the fans, they will never shut up, okay? They're doing chants and
Right.
song,
It's
and you
loud.
can't hear a thing, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty, the majesty of this song and the presence of Montserrat Caballé, who in Barcelona is a goddess, the entire stadium went silent. And this music was the most, it was just, it just, people started crying. There's Freddie Mercury had just recently passed away, and he's singing this song together with her on the pitch before the match. And the
Yeah.
whole stadium was silent. And it was one of the most special moments of my life to be able to deliver that to the city, to Spain, and to the world. The power of music and sport together is a beautiful thing, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I've got quite a number of examples of things like that, but it
Yeah.
was it was a special moment for me for sure.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that story. That's amazing. And again, two countries, Spain wasn't in it either.
And the final of that game was 0-0 at the final minutes of the game. Sorry, it was 1-0, Bayern, and Manchester scored a goal, so now it's 1-1. And so in the soccer rules at that time, if it's 1-1 at the end of regulation time, they go into overtime, but it's called sudden death. So whoever scores a goal first is the winner of the match. So the equalizer goal, 1-1, my Manchester United was scored like within the last minute of the game. So they have a break now and they start the overtime period, sudden death. And in the first minute of the overtime period, Manchester scores again and wins the game
Oh,
2-1. It's one of the most exciting finishes of a club final ever.
what a moment, my goodness. So what
So,
about a double bagel moment?
well,
I'm
okay,
sure
so
you've seen it all. I mean, running events like that is gonna be, I don't know, pretty stressful, I would say,
oh,
because the stakes are high. I mean, you got
no,
very
it's the most
passionate
stressful
fans.
thing you can ever do,
Yeah,
especially in global soccer, because there's a lot of violence in global soccer because the fans are so passionate. A
right.
small percentage of them like to fight to protect their team. I don't know why they like to fight, honestly, but there's always a certain element of that, not always, oftentimes, especially around a final because the emotions are running so high.
Yeah,
But my one of the things that was a real frustration for me was during the America's Cup, okay, in San Francisco. This is with Larry Ellison, who one of the world's richest men. His passion is sailing. He won the America's Cup in Spain a few years before the America's Cup in San Francisco. And when you win the America's Cup, you can take it back to your own city and have the next one. So he brought it back to San Francisco. And so here we are in San Francisco, which, as you know, is a very green, liberal city. And the America's Cup is coming in, which is fine because it's a sailing race. It uses the
right,
power of the wind. So we had to raise money through the city of San Francisco to support the organization of the America's Cup. That was part of the arrangement that Larry had made with the city. And so I wanted to. It's sailing is very difficult to sell sponsorship and media rights because it's just how many people watch sailing. Okay,
right.
it's a wonderful sport, but it's not that popular on television. So I said, listen, let's create a program for the America's Cup called America's Cup Healthy Oceans. So this was going to be now like a give back program. The oceans of our world, unfortunately, are in a lot of peril right now because of all the climatic and environmental conditions. And the America's Cup, which is on the world's oceans, if what a great idea if the America's Cup starts to help promote the health of the world's oceans. So
Yeah,
so I'm thinking, oh, I got a good one here because a lot of big banks, insurance companies, they give to good causes, right? And we can promote this through the America because we have a lot of television that we're doing. We can promote this America's Cup Healthy Oceans with the America's Cup behind it and these big companies that are partnering with us. We can raise sponsorship money through that effort, right? So that was the whole idea.
yeah.
Um, and I thought I was very proud of myself and very happy with this. And I took it to Larry Ellison, and he said, "No, no, no. I want nothing to do with that.
Oh,
This is this is an idea that is not going to get my support. Please don't ever come to me with an idea like that again." And and I was shell shocked. I mean, one of the world's richest men, he does not participate in any kind of causes that have to do with the environment. He won't do it. So
mm,
we couldn't run it the way we wanted to. And it was a big, huge disappointment for me because I thought the program could have been extremely successful and also kind of start a trend in sport to partner with good causes. And of course, there are sports that do that. We were maybe one of the earlier ones, but and we just really never got it off the ground. So that
yeah.
was a big disappointment.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that
Mm.
I want to see more of. I'm a Lightning fan, hockey here, and I'm in Tampa, Florida. So love watching the Lightning and going to the games and stuff. They have this thing this year where they do a patch. What is it? Patch for a cause or something like that, where like
Mhm.
the jerseys have the YMCA patch on it, and they're helping. I'm assuming they're helping raise funds. I'm wondering if how much they paid for that, but it just brings awareness and to good causes, and I think that that's something that I want to see in sports more. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, a friend of mine is the sponsorship director for the English Soccer Federation. So one of the biggest soccer federations in the world. I mean, soccer was invented in England. He's the head of sponsorship. He said to his boss there, he said, "We have McDonald's as a sponsor, and we shouldn't have them. That's not a company that is promoting health, as a business. Why don't we get a nutrition company and healthy food and use and get that type of a sponsor?" And his boss said, "Well, if you can find someone to replace them, that would be fine, because he agreed that let's, and my friend, his name is Richard Ames. He's one of the really bright guys in the world of sponsorship. And he figured out a way to sell that concept to Marks and Spencer's, one of the biggest food chains, grocery store in England, together with a nutrition company. And they came in and they took over that McDonald's sponsorship. And now they have a program throughout England because every soccer club with all the young players belongs to the English FA. They're members of the English FA. And so the English FA has gone to them now with this healthy food program. And they're getting these young soccer players through their coaches to start changing their eating habits. And it's working. And they have 6,000 clubs. So this is having an impact on English society, okay? And you
Yeah.
can imagine these kids, they're going to take this message home. Some of them want nothing to do with it. They want to eat their Doritos and McDonald's. But it's having an impact, and it's going to have a more and more of an impact because what you eat is who you are and how you can perform. It's part of it. It's a big, like your training, your sleep, your diet, your hydration. All these things are so. He is changing the world of sport by bringing that program to the English FA and then taking it into the grassroots of soccer in England. And I love it. And it's going to grow. More people are going to be doing that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then just wrapping it up with, let's go back to paddle just for a second. What can people do? Like our audience is mostly tennis coaches, tennis directors, club owners too. Can they reach out to you and ask you things about how they can maybe add paddle to their club if they're in the US, and how can they do that?
By contacting MindSpring Paddle. Our website is mindspringpaddle.com, all one word. And there is the way to see how our programs work and how to contact us and so on. So that's probably the best way to go about it. We're here to help to get more courts and to help clubs figure out, the best way to do it. By the way, we don't have to build paddle courts on tennis courts. It makes sense in some cases, but you could
Right.
have a tennis club that has, some adjacent land with nothing on it, and we could put paddle courts there next to the tennis courts. So, we're not trying to cannibalize the tennis courts only if it makes sense for the club because they're not being used. But if they're all being used, fine, let's put the paddle courts next to the tennis courts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And hopefully some public facilities too. Because they're all, if they're all at clubs, not everybody joins a club, like you were saying.
yeah.
So, especially in warmer climates, people just go out and play at a public place. They pay $10 or whatever to use a court, and, be
And
great to have that.
there's public pickleball courts all over this country, and there will be public paddle courts as well.
Yeah, hopefully.
I can't wait till you start playing paddle more. In Tampa, paddle's big in Florida, especially Miami, and it's gonna be coming to more and more of Florida, and as it does, when you get easy access, to the courts, I'm sure you'll be a regular as well.
Oh, for sure. My husband loves it too. So, Craig, thank you so much for joining us today. Learn a ton about paddle. We wish you the best in growing the sport, especially here in the US. Selfishly, I want to see it here, so I can go play too. So, thank
Well,
you for your time. Really appreciate it.
thank you for all the good questions and the nice chat. Thank you.